Now let's go to the more expensive cards. 5 drops. We have the Bomb Squad. 5 mana, 2/2. Battle Cry, deal 5 damage to an enemy minion. Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to your hero. Please don't explode, please don't explode, please don't explode. I mean, 5 damage to an enemy minion targeted for 5 mana and a 2/2 in one card, that seems pretty good. Dealing 2 damage to yourself, that seems pretty bad. If you would have a reliable way to get rid of the Death Rattle effect, and no, Purify is not that, then this card could be pretty good. The way it is, I think, dealing 5 damage to yourself in a meta that is probably still going to be very aggressive is quite significant. The body is quite bad. I don't think that the 5 damage on their own are going to be enough to deal with that. So I don't think that this will see much play. Burgly Bully. 5 mana for 6. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, add a coin to your hand. We've had quite a number of cards which had this whenever your opponent casts a spell text, and none of them ever worked. I don't think this one will either. Adding coins to your hand is potentially quite strong. You get like half an Innervate, and Innervate is insane. But, well, since none of the whenever your opponent casts a spell cards worked ever, I don't think that this one will work either. Doppelgangster. 5 mana, 2/2. Battlecry, summon 2 copies of this minion, so you get 6/6 worth of stats for 5 mana. Having them spread out is sometimes better, sometimes worse. The real power of this card is you put this in every deck where you play cards that buff cards in your hand, and if this one gets like +2/+2, then suddenly for 5 mana you summon 3 4/4s, and that is insane. So yeah, every me get in there. If you play a buff deck cards in your hand deck, and if that deck is a deck that actually works, then this card will be in it. Finja, the Flying Star. 5 mana, 2/4 stealth. Whenever this attacks and kills a minion, summon 2 Murlocs from your deck. Now the stats obviously are horrible. Stealth is extremely good. Without stealth this would be completely pointless, I think. With stealth, yeah. The thing is, how likely is this to kill a minion on turn 5 when your opponent knows this is around? It's going to be hard. But he's the last true master of Finjutsu, so he's got that going for him. If it works, you summon 2 Murlocs from your deck. Again, thinning out your deck is most often positive. And most of the time it's positive. Sometimes it's problematic, but generally it's a good thing. I see the problem that it's going to be difficult to kill something with this. You're not going to be able to pull this off more than once. And yeah, the Murlocs you summon from your deck would have to be significant. Where this is interesting, I think, is in for Paladins, not for putting this in your deck necessarily, but when you get this off of Murloc Knight. But generally it's a Murloc. Murloc decks are unstable at best. The only stable Murloc deck in recent times that saw play was Anything Can Happen. You would not want this in an anything deck, because it neither buffs other Murlocs and it doesn't have charge. So, no. And I don't really see a new Murloc deck becoming really powerful with this expansion. Grokfu Master. 5 mana 3/5 Wind Fury. No. Lotus Agents, 5 mana 5/3. Battlecry, Discover, Druid, Rogue or Shaman card. Same thing. I'm not going to repeat this for every one of those cards. This one has the additional problem that it is rather expensive and has the dreaded 3 health. So I think this is of the cards that Discover class cards. This is one of the worst. One of the worst ones, yeah. Red Mana Worm. Whenever you cast a spell, gain +2 attack, 5 mana 2/6. So it has double the attack, go on, and double the health, yes. And its trigger has twice the effect. What? And it costs 5 times more. Now, the regular Mana Worm is an insanely good card. The Red Mana Worm is much more dependent on what you're playing. The one class where or one deck where I see this as potentially an insane card is Miracle Rogue, where you play this and stealth it, and then next turn you play like 5, 6, 7 cheap spells, and then this is an extremely strong finisher. In other classes, it's too expensive and its baseline stats aren't good enough. But in Miracle Rogue, I think this could be potentially a strong finisher. Second Rate Bruiser, 5 mana for 5. Taunt, costs 2 less if your opponent has at least 3 minions. 5 mana for 5 is bad stats. Taunt is generally not something you want to pay too much mana for. Costs 2 less if your opponent has 3 minions, so in that case it's like a 3 mana 4/5 taunt. That would be pretty good. How often is that effect going to take place? And if it, I mean, the situation where your opponent has at least 3 minions, that's a situation you generally want to avoid. But it does happen from time to time. And at those times, this could be pretty good. But I'm not convinced. I think it would be better to avoid the situation. And if you are on that situation and you play this cheaply, is that going to save you? Maybe. Possibly. Perhaps. Spiked Hawk Rider. 5 mana 5/5. Battlecry. If an enemy minion has taunt, gain charge. So 5 mana 5/5 is not great stats. And I think the text is also not great. Taunt, there aren't that many taunt runes around, and I don't see that that's going to change too much. And even in that case, well, then you get a 5/5 charge, which isn't bad, but isn't amazing either. So I don't think that this will see play. Streetwise Investigator. 5 mana, 4/6. Battlecry, enemy minions lose stealth. This is obviously a tech card. If there are tons of stealth minions around and become a real problem, then you put this into your deck. Otherwise you don't. Since right now there's only one class, one deck that really actively uses stealth, and that's Miracle Rogue. You sometimes in the beast decks have the Tiger, but generally other classes don't really play with stealth. So I think at the moment this is not going to be worth it, but it is nice to have that tool. 6 mana 3/8 taunt. No, I don't think that this will see play. I mean, no. Aya Blackpaw. 6 mana, 5/3, summon and Death Rattle, a Battlecry and Death Rattle, summon a Jade Golem. Now, the biggest disadvantage of this card is the 3 back here. Again, 3 health is a very bad number. But apart from that, I think this card will see play in the Jade Golem decks, because, well, you summon 2 of them, and if you have summoned a number of them before, this you might actually just play this card for the summon and for the Battle Cry and Death Rattle, and not actually for Aya Blackpaw herself. So yeah, Jade Golem deck, we'll play this. Big Time Racketeer. Battle Cry, summon a 6/6 Ogre. This is an amazing target for Evolve, and a very, very crappy result for a 4-mana Evolve. This is a nice target for Brand Bronzebeard, but in general, for 6 mana, is that worth it? I don't think so. For 6 mana, generally I want more for 6 mana than vanilla stats. And this is mainly what you get out of this. If you cannot use the Battle Cry multiple times in some way, or have the Battle Cry synergize with something else in your deck. In a Battle Cry deck, would I play this? Probably not, because it's quite slow. Defias Cleaner, 6 mana, 5/7. Battle Cry, silence a minion with Death Rattle. So after throwing out the most used silence effect in the game, they add more targeted silences. And this is essentially the bane of Sylvanas. Your opponent plays Sylvanas on 6, you play this, and then you're very happy. But again, just like with the Streetwise Investigator, this is a very, very situational techie card. If there's tons of Death Rattle around, this might be worth looking into. If everybody is playing Sylvanas and Karin and Tyrion and so on, this could be good. Because the stats aren't terrible. If the effect does hit something, then the stats are good enough. So yeah, tech card potential depends on the meta. Fight Promoter, 6 mana for 4. Battle Cry, if you control a minion with 6 or more health, draw 2 cards. As far as I know, this works on itself. So if it is a 6/6, if you have buffed it in your hand to become a 6/6, then it's a 6, then the effect works. Drawing 2 cards is extremely powerful. So again, it depends if you have reliable ways of buffing this one to 6/6. Then it's a good card. It's a very strong card. If you have a reliable way to control the minion with 6 or more health, again, very strong card. Problem is, the buffing cards in your hand is not really targeted, or if it's targeted, it's like Beast, and this isn't a Beast. So that's difficult to control that exactly this card gets buffed. If you use up a card to buff this, then it essentially becomes a 6 mana 6/6 draw 1 card, and that's significantly worse. It's not bad, but worse. And yeah. And having reliably a 6 or more health mana health creature on the board that late in the game is also difficult. So I think it's probably hard to pull this off. And if you cannot pull this off, then it's a 6 mana for 4, and that is extremely bad. So this is always makes me wary of cards like that, where if you cannot pull off their special effect, they become abysmal. And in those cases, you either need to be able to pretty much guarantee that their effect happens, which with this you can't, or their effect needs to be game-changing. And while drawing 2 cards is pretty strong, it's not something that will win you the game outright, so I don't think that Fight Promoter is a great card. It's potentially good if you can get it to work, but yeah. Then we have the Leather-Clad Hawk Leader. Battle Cry, if your opponent has 6 or more cards in hand, gain charge. Again, 6 mana 6/6 is meh, a little bit below the stats you want to have. If the opponent has 6 or more cards in hand, that's hard to control. You could like Oracle him, but it's hard to control for yourself that the effect happens, and that is always a bad thing if you can't control the likelihood of an effect. So I think this is not a good card. Madame Goya. 6 mana for 3. Battlecry, choose a friendly minion, swap it with a minion in your deck. Well, 6 mana for 4/3 is pretty bad. And 3 is even worse as health, as I've said multiple times. This could be interesting for some crazy combos, crazy combo decks. But it's too random, too tricky, too expensive, happens too late in the game for it to be really good, useful, stable. But this will probably be interesting for like highlight reels, because you can do strange things with this. But generally, I don't think that this is a good card. Wind Up Burglebot, 6 mana, 5/5 mech. Whenever this attacks a minion and survives, draw a card. How many cards would this card have to draw for it to be worth it? And how likely is that to happen? Again, this is like a prime target for your opponent. And it's just too expensive for that. So I don't think that this is a good card. Especially the mech thing, there isn't really any mech synergy around anymore, so that's in standard pretty much irrelevant. So, no, not impressed. Brathian, 6 mana for 5, taunt, battlecry, draw cards until you draw one that isn't a dragon. So, would you play 6 mana for 5, taunt, draw 1 card? Probably not. Would you play it if it draws 2 cards? Maybe. The question here is, how likely is it going to happen? I mean, draw 3 cards, yeah, I would play that. Draw 2 cards, possible. Draw 1 card, no. Most of the time dragon decks are actually not that full of dragons, because there aren't that many dragons you want to play, and there are too many other cards that you want to play. So I think the likelihood of this not hitting a dragon is generally too high. If you can build a dragon deck that has like 20 dragons or something like that, and it becomes quite likely for Rathian to hit multiple dragons, then I think it will see play, but I don't really see that happening. There are just, in all the classes that play dragons, dragon decks, you have like, what plays, so you have warrior that plays what? Why do you only give me... Oh, because of that. Like, as a priest, you're probably playing Wormrest Agent, Dragonfire Potion, stuff like that. Not going to happen. You don't play that. You don't play that. Alex Strauss's Champion. Yeah, you might draw that. Then you're unhappy. And from this here, you might play Blackwing Technician, Netherspite Historian, Blackwing Corruptor, one of the big reasons to play Dragon in my book. So, and that's just the dragon cards that synergize with dragons. Maybe Rand Blackhand saw some play from time to time. So yeah, generally I think in every dragon deck there are so many cards that aren't dragons. Oh, let's go back to Gadgetzan. Oh. What's going on here? Oh. There are so many dragon cards in dragon decks that aren't dragons that I don't think that Rathian is stable enough. Of course, if you play it and it draws you like 5 cards, that's amazing. But generally, for me, it's just too unreliable. Don Hancho, 7 mana, 5/6. Battlecry, give a random minion in your hand +5/+5. If this hits your summon 3 copies of this, or 3 iterations of this, then you're going to be very happy. If it hits something irrelevant, then all you get is a bunch of stats. And while a bunch of stats is nice, that late into the game, turn 7, 8, 9, 10 and beyond, you generally want your cards to have more than just stats. And also the problem is this is slow. On turn 7 you play a 5-6 that does nothing to the board, which is crap. Then the next turn you play something that has huge stats potentially, but it might hit something that also doesn't do anything to the board, but it's just one of your mid-game minions. And then that's not perfect either. So if it, again, this with hitting a random minion is hard to control potentially, unless you can like empty your hand to the point where you only have one. And then are there that many minions where giving it +5/+5 can potentially win you the game? If you get like 3 7/7s, yes, that can potentially win you the game. I agree with that. But otherwise, I think this is a bit too slow and it does too little on its own to warrant playing this on turn 7. Major Noggin Fogger, 9 mana, 5/4. All targets are chosen randomly. Yeah. Not going to be competitive, I think, but going to be featured in a lot of funny Hearthstone compilation videos. That's pretty much all I have to say. Okay, so that's all the cards in the set. My conclusion and predictions for how the meta will evolve, which card classes will become stronger, which become weaker, that'll be in a separate video. So yeah, I'm Kamaliao, have a good time.